Hi, and welcome to Allot on Air. During the next 10 minutes, we'll be meeting with industry experts to discuss the hottest trends in telecom, cybersecurity, and network intelligence.
I'm Barry Spielman, Product Marketing Director for Security at Allot. And joining us today in the Allot On Air studio is Jonathan Waland, Director of Pre-sales for APAC at Allot. Jonathan, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, not a problem. Thanks for having me.
So in today's podcast, we're going to be putting the spotlight on Allot Pre-sales and interestingly on IoT devices and how Allot Secure protects them. So Jonathan, let's start at the top. Your accent kind of gives you away, but for our audience here, where are you based?
Well, I'm actually based in Sydney in Australia, although for those who've got a really good go on accents, I'm actually originally from the UK. So depending where you're from, it may be one or the other or both.
Ah, well, the accent still does definitely play, and Sydney is definitely a place I want to go. I have a cousin there. One day we'll get there. So let's dive right into it. So can you go into some details about what you're doing at Allot?
So I'm in the pre-sales area. So within pre-sales, we're responsible for the product solution presentations to customers, solution design specification, public presentations such as this, where we evangelize the products, get the market out there, let people know what's going on, customer workshops, and then ultimately the tenders and the RFX responses. But if I boil it down, I do the technical bits as part of the sale, and my colleague does the commercial bits.
No, fair enough. So what are some of the cool and interesting things that you're working on lately?
So I work in two separate areas, the traditional DPI, so the traffic management, traffic engineering, that side of things. But we also do the other section, which is security as a service.
Okay.
On the traditional side, NBN in Australia continues to be a driver for Australian carriers, balancing the customer experience during peak periods against the ever-increasing volume and demand of video traffic. It's quite a big issue here in Australia in terms of people want more, they don't want to pay more, so the operator has to work out how to balance those competing demands. But I'm also doing a bunch of projects for local providers who are looking to expand their security offerings to cover things like security outside the home. That will be a first for us here in Australia, looking at some of the products here.
Interesting. All right, cool. Now, rumor has it that you personally have a large collection of IoT devices in your home. Is that true?
Yes, more than I realized.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's actually quite scary. I did a count and it's a bit disturbing. Maybe I have a problem. So I've got a couple of IP cameras, loads of sensors for things like temperature and motion detection, Google Home speakers, an irrigation system for the garden. And then on top of that, don't forget the usual things such as laptops, mobile phones, PlayStation, smart TV. So I've got a fair number of devices, but you'd be surprised. I'm probably not that far ahead of most people.
Well, you're far ahead of me. I'll say that. But, okay. Well, all right. So, but we all know IoT, is a potential vulnerability. So, what are some of the risks and dangers associated with the IoT devices? Along with the good stuff that it does, what keeps you up at night?
IoT for the consumer, and that's what really we're talking about here, is great.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to automate and link various devices to make modern life easier. And it is becoming more and more obtainable, and this is why I suspect you've got more than you expect. I mean, my local DIY store, Bunnings, for those who know it, sell a whole load of cheap devices, light bulbs, doorbells, and everything in between. Mm-hmm. And that's great. What you then have to understand is most IoT devices are a combination of something innocuous, such as your light bulb, and then the more complicated things like a webcam, combined with what is in effect a built-in, always-on computer. That in its own right isn't a problem. It's when you give it internet access. Mm-hmm. And then you realize the supplier of the built-in computer didn't consider all the security aspects they should have. Mm-hmm. One issue. And the firmware that the computer is built on was last updated 5 years ago. So what you've now got is a whole load of extra computers in your home, all these light bulbs that are always on, with potentially security holes that you've just exposed to the global internet. What does that mean? So a malicious actor might only want to turn your lights on and off, and that's probably scary, but it's not a big deal. But what if you've got an IP camera watching the kids at night? Or smart door locks that can be remotely unlocked? Or you've got your electric heater controlled by a smart plug?
Yeah, well, that's serious stuff. There's no question about that. So what's been typically done by others in the industry up until now?
To be honest, not much. I mean, they're mainly just recommendations from various industries and governments. It's change the default password on your devices. Make sure your router is secure. Make sure the devices are running the latest software. And that's great. Doesn't go very far.
All right. Why isn't that going far enough? Why isn't it working?
Well, for many people, it's just too complex. It's too spread out. And there's gaps in the recommendations, especially for those devices with these known security holes. You can't fix the light bulb because the light bulb is this single device. The original vendor of the built-in computer's long since moved on. There's no firmware upgrades. It's not like Windows where you can say click a button and Microsoft will update it. Your light bulb is going to be as it was when you bought it with whatever holes are in there.
That's true. All right. So Allot has an offering that handles IoT in certain ways. How is our approach different?
So we've got a product called Home Secure, and to be honest, the name gives it away. It sits on the home router, and it provides a centralized security point for the home network. As well as a single view of all the devices, it flags and helps you close known security holes. It helps isolate devices you don't want exposed to each other on the internet. And then on top of that, you can then add in things like parental control, access to controlling devices such as your kids' laptops or phone, antivirus and malware. And all of this is without having to install anything other than just the management app which you'll stick on your phone.
All right, let's drill down a little bit more into Home Secure. If you can, tell us a little bit how it works. How does the CSP add it to its offering? What's the experience like for the customer?
So Home Secure requires a modified version of the ISP's router software. And once that's sorted out, it monitors and is running, it monitors all the traffic going through the router. As that router is the gateway to the subscriber's home network, it sees and understands all the endpoints in the home network, all the devices, and via the mobile app, Android or iOS, you can provide the subscriber with a manageable view of the devices. The subscriber can then group all the devices together, such as all the kids' devices or all the home things or all the parents' devices, apply a simple security and management policy to all those devices in one go. Because it runs on the router, Home Secure is able to see all the devices. This is really important. It includes all those IoT devices we started up with. The Home Secure app allows the subscriber to block some of those devices from the internet. If your smart home bulb doesn't need to call out to the rest of the universe, why let it or block it? It also does things like look for default passwords, it reports on known issues, and allows you to basically limit what devices can do on the network. The agent itself runs on the router. It's very lightweight with a minimal impact on the hardware, and it can be rolled out by the operator through a central management to all their routers. But then you just enable it for those subscribers who opt in, or maybe they're on a higher value service plan. So you can basically roll it out to everyone, and then if people decide to sign up, you bring them on board. So the onboarding is nice and simple. And then on top of that, the subscriber app, it's easy to use, and it can be skinned by the operator or combined to maybe their self-care app. So the goal here is basically visibility to all the devices, the ability on your home network, including the ones that you can't directly manage yourself. Do it simply, do it in a controlled way, and allow the subscriber to basically be in control.
Excellent, excellent. So what's the best way for our listeners to learn more?
That's a good point. I was hoping you were going to tell me that, Barry.
I can. I'm not interviewing you, but so sort of our listeners can certainly go on our website at www.allot.com, and even there's a Home Secure page there. I'm assuming also we can have them be in touch with local offices and their appropriate sales folks.
Certainly. And that's why you're in marketing and I'm in the pre-sales.
Everyone's got their role. Everyone's got a part of a team.
Yeah.
But it's good talking to you, Jonathan. I appreciate the insights, and I'm going to have to get a few more IoT devices to even come close to competing with you. So, Jonathan Waland, Sydney-based Director of Pre-sales for APAC at Allot, thanks so much for joining me today.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
That's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening. You can get more information about network intelligence and security solutions for service providers and enterprises on our website at allot.com. Subscribe to this podcast to make sure you hear about new trends and technologies on the next episode of Allot on Air.